From the beginning of storytelling, across myth, religion, literature, film and anime, one archetype has remained persistently powerful: the chosen one. Audiences recognize it instantly, even if they can't always define why it resonates so deeply. It's the idea that an ordinary individual, often unaware of their significance, suddenly becomes the center of a world-altering narrative. Yet among all the stages of this archetype's journey, one moment consistently stands out as the emotional and psychological core: the moment of realization. This is the instant when the character understands, sometimes reluctantly and sometimes with awe, that they have a destiny larger than themselves. It's the shift from confusion to clarity, from uncertainty to purpose, from anonymity to meaning. And it's a moment that nearly every viewer remembers long after the final credits roll. What makes this moment so compelling is not simply the revelation itself, but the transformation that begins the very second that awareness settles in. Before this point, the character may be struggling to comprehend strange events happening around them, or dismissing hints about their potential, or resisting a call they aren't yet prepared to answer. They might feel lost in the chaos of their everyday life, unable to grasp why everything feels slightly misaligned. But when the truth finally breaks through, whether revealed through a mentor's words, a sudden manifestation of power, or an irreversible event that shatters the illusion of normalcy, the character experiences a profound shift. It is as if the story aligns with their inner self for the first time. Their reactions vary from shock to fear to reluctant acceptance, yet behind all those emotions is a universal human desire: the need to understand one's place in the world. Audiences respond to this moment so intensely because it mirrors something deeply human. Most people have, at some point, wondered whether their life holds a larger meaning, whether their struggles have purpose, and whether they are capable of more than they currently believe. The chosen one's moment of realization externalizes these internal questions. It dramatizes them in a way that feels larger than life, yet still intimately relatable. As viewers, we are drawn to watch as the character confronts the truth that they cannot return to who they once were. The realization marks the boundary between the past and the future, between small decisions and monumental consequences. It is the point where potential becomes undeniable. This moment also defines the narrative trajectory that follows. Everything that happens afterward, the victories, the hardships, the sacrifices, the growth, begins here. It's not the acquisition of power or the mastery of skills that makes the transformation meaningful. It's the internal awakening, the recognition that the character's life has been irrevocably altered. The emotional gravity of this turning point is what gives depth to their journey and weight to their choices. Even in the most fantastical worlds, this moment feels grounded in genuine emotion. It's why a single scene of realization can become more iconic than battles, revelations, or plot twists. It's the instant where the audience feels the characters step into the path that was always waiting for them. Today, we're going to explore this pivotal moment in detail, breaking down why it resonates so strongly across different genres and how storytellers use it to anchor the evolution of the hero's identity. If you're someone who loves diving into themes, symbolism, and character psychology, this is the perfect place to start. Before we begin, make sure to like and share the video if you find it interesting, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any upcoming content. Before the moment of realization can strike with full narrative force, the audience must first understand the world the character inhabits and the state of mind they exist in before destiny intrudes. This setup phase is not merely background information, it is the psychological scaffolding that allows the realization to feel transformative rather than arbitrary. Without a clear portrayal of who the character is before they awaken to their true purpose, the emotional resonance of what follows would be significantly diminished. The chosen one motif depends on contrast, and contrast cannot exist without first grounding the viewer in the character's ordinary reality. Most stories begin by presenting the character as someone who still believes they are living a normal life. They may not feel special, important, or capable of affecting anything beyond their immediate surroundings. Often they are preoccupied with mundane concerns, school, work, friendships, or personal flaws that define their everyday struggles. This ordinariness is critical. It establishes relatability, and reminds the audience that, before destiny calls, even the greatest heroes are simply people navigating familiar challenges. The banality of this stage makes the subsequent awakening feel like a tectonic shift. The viewer is invited to identify with the protagonist because at this point, nothing appears extraordinary. In stories that follow a more traditional heroic structure, the character might display hints of potential without realizing their significance. These hints often manifest as unusual instincts, inexplicable talents, or moments where the character reacts with greater intuition or bravery than expected. However, because the character lacks context, they interpret these anomalies through the lens of everyday life. Rather than thinking, "I am meant for something greater," they think, "That was strange," or "Why did I react like that?" This misunderstanding adds depth to their journey. The audience sees the seeds of greatness long before the character does, generating anticipation and emotional investment. Alternatively, the character may feel fundamentally out of place from the very beginning. They might sense that something is off, that they do not quite belong where they are, or that their life has a missing component they cannot articulate. This sense of displacement can manifest in subtle ways: difficulty connecting with others, a desire for something unknown, or an inner tension between who they are and who they feel they should be. This tension is one of the most compelling foundations for a chosen one narrative. It provides emotional momentum that propels the character forward once the truth is revealed. When the realization finally arrives, it feels not like a random revelation, but like the answer to a silent question they have carried for years. The avoidance of responsibility is another common trait in the setup phase. Many protagonists resist taking on tasks that require leadership, courage, or commitment because they see themselves as unqualified or unworthy. This reluctance is not a flaw in the storytelling, but a vital component. It highlights the character's humanity and reinforces their vulnerability. When the character eventually embraces their role as the chosen one, the contrast with their earlier avoidance amplifies the magnitude of their growth. A hero who begins confident and assured may be impressive, but a hero who begins uncertain and grows into their purpose is emotionally compelling. The setup phase also establishes the world around the character, often juxtaposing its stability with subtle signs of underlying disruption. Everyday environments are depicted as predictable, structured, and safe, at least on the surface. But traces of conflict, danger, or mystery may linger at the edges of the story. These hints foreshadow the coming shift without undermining the normality the character currently inhabits. This balance is essential because the realization moment gains its impact from the collision between the ordinary and the extraordinary. The audience must feel the weight of what is at stake when the character steps beyond the boundaries of their previous life. One of the most important purposes of this setup is to illustrate the limitations the character believes they possess. These self-perceived boundaries form a psychological cage that confines their aspirations and shapes their understanding of what is possible. The realization that they are the chosen one shatters this cage, but without first demonstrating its existence, the moment of liberation would lack emotional heft. Whether these limitations stem from fear, trauma, societal pressure, or simple inexperience, they play a crucial role in defining the character's internal conflict. A protagonist who has never questioned their capabilities or struggled with doubt would not experience the same magnitude of transformation. In many narratives, relationships formed during the setup phase act as emotional anchors. Friends, mentors, family members, or even antagonists contribute to shaping the character's worldview before destiny intervenes. These relationships provide insight into the protagonist's values, insecurities, and motivations. They also highlight what the character stands to lose or must eventually leave behind. When the realization moment occurs, these relationships often become sources of emotional tension. The character may fear disappointing loved ones, jeopardizing stability, or facing a future in which familiar bonds are tested. These concerns deepen the narrative because the character's journey is not just about gaining power or fulfilling prophecy, but also about navigating the emotional costs of transformation. Another essential element of the setup is the protagonist's perception of the larger world. At this stage, they may view events with a limited perspective, unaware of the hidden forces, ancient conflicts, or cosmic stakes that will later define their journey. Their innocence or ignorance is not a weakness, but a narrative device that widens the emotional gulf between the mundane beginning and the epic destiny ahead. When they finally realize that the world is far more complex and perilous than they imagined, the sudden expansion of understanding creates a dramatic psychological shift. This contrast reinforces the significance of the realization moment, emphasizing how radically the character's worldview must evolve. The setup phase also allows the narrative to explore themes of identity and self-doubt. Many protagonists begin their journey grappling with questions that have no easy answers. Who am I really? Why do I feel disconnected from everything around me? Am I capable of something greater, or am I destined for an ordinary life? These questions form the emotional groundwork that prepares the character for the revelation to come. When the realization arrives, it often addresses these unresolved feelings directly, providing clarity that the character has subconsciously sought. This emotional payoff is one of the most satisfying aspects of the Chosen One arc, because it ties personal introspection to a larger narrative purpose. It is also important to consider the narrative pacing during this phase. The story must linger just long enough in the ordinary world to fully establish the character's baseline, but not so long that it delays the progression toward realization. Striking this balance ensures that the audience remains engaged while still granting the moment of realization the space it needs to feel monumental. Pacing influences tone as well. A slow, reflective setup can make the realization feel like a profound spiritual awakening, while a fast, tension-driven setup can make it feel like a sudden, explosive shift. Both approaches are valid, depending on the emotional impact the creator aims to achieve. The setup also lays the groundwork for the character's eventual response to their destiny. By understanding the protagonist's fears, desires, strengths, and weaknesses in this early stage, the audience can fully appreciate how the realization challenges or aligns with their core identity. For example, a character who fears responsibility may initially reject their role, while one who longs for purpose may embrace it immediately. These differences shape the trajectory of the narrative and create unique emotional textures. The setup phase ensures that the realization moment is not merely a plot device, but a deeply personal experience that reflects the character's inner landscape. Ultimately, the purpose of the setup is to humanize the protagonist before elevating them. The Chosen One motif derives its power from the tension between ordinary existence and extraordinary destiny. The more fully the story immerses the audience in the protagonist's life before the turning point, the more dramatic and meaningful the shift becomes. The setup creates the emotional contrast that allows the realization moment to strike with maximum impact. Without it, the transformation would feel unearned, and the audience would struggle to connect with the character's journey. In this way, the foundation built during the setup is not a passive or static part of the story. It is an active force that shapes the emotional arc of the narrative. Every detail, from the character's daily routines to their doubts and desires, serves the larger purpose of setting the stage for the revelation that will define the rest of their journey. By the time the realization arrives, the audience understands exactly who the character was before their world changed, and this understanding makes the transformation not only compelling, but inevitable. The moment when everything changes rarely arrives gently. In stories built around the Chosen One archetype, the trigger is almost always disruptive, destabilizing, and undeniably transformative. It is the catalyst that forces the character to confront a truth they were never prepared to face. Whether it emerges through a sudden crisis, an ancient prophecy, a mysterious figure stepping out of the shadows, or an unexpected surge of power erupting from within, this moment fractures the character's understanding of reality. It initiates a chain reaction that can no longer be undone, and it is the instant that propels the story toward its central thematic core. The trigger is more than an event. It is the ignition point of destiny. At the surface level, the trigger serves as an external plot mechanism, pushing the character into the unknown, but on a deeper psychological level, it marks a rupture in the protagonist's internal world. Before this moment, the character lived within the boundaries of their perceived identity. After the trigger, those boundaries no longer hold. The shock of this transition is essential because the realization that one has a predetermined, extraordinary destiny is not something a person can absorb calmly. It hits with the force of revelation, overwhelming the senses and shattering the safety of ordinary life. In many narratives, the trigger emerges through crisis. This crisis might be a sudden attack, a dramatic loss, or an event that exposes hidden threats. When danger strikes, the character's natural responses, fear, confusion, and instinct, take over. Yet within the chaos, something else often happens. A latent ability surfaces, or a protective force manifests around them, revealing power that the character never knew they possessed. This involuntary display becomes the first undeniable clue that the protagonist is not ordinary. The character may not understand what happened, but the audience recognizes this as the spark that begins the transformation. Another common form of trigger involves prophecy. Sometimes the character stumbles upon an ancient artifact or an old text, and sometimes a prophecy is spoken aloud by someone who recognizes signs the protagonist never noticed. The weight of being foretold, of realizing that one's very existence has been anticipated across time, creates a powerful psychological upheaval. It redefines the character's sense of autonomy, challenging the belief that their life belongs entirely to them. A prophetic trigger is particularly potent because it blends destiny with mystery. The protagonist must grapple not only with the idea of being chosen, but with the implications of a larger narrative that has already been set in motion. The trigger can also take the form of a guide or mentor who reveals the hidden truth. This figure may appear unexpectedly, drawn to the character by spiritual, magical, or cosmic intuition. Their presence alone signals a shift in the story. Through deliberate dialogue or a dramatic demonstration, the guide dismantles the protagonist's misconceptions about themselves, exposing a reality that was always present but never acknowledged. This kind of trigger plays directly into the Chosen One framework because the mentor often serves as both harbinger and confirmer of destiny. However, even when the information comes from a trusted figure, the character rarely accepts it immediately. The psychological disruption is too great, too sudden, and too consequential to be absorbed without resistance. Perhaps the most visceral form of trigger occurs when the character experiences a spontaneous eruption of power. This moment is iconic across anime, fantasy, and superhero narratives. It might manifest as an energy surge, heightened senses, telekinetic force, or an instinctive reaction in the midst of danger. Unlike a prophecy or an explanation from an external figure, this trigger comes from within, making it impossible to dismiss as rumor or misunderstanding. The character's own body becomes undeniable evidence of their unique nature. Yet this internal revelation often generates as much fear as awe. To feel something powerful rising from one's core, something uncontrollable and unfamiliar, can be deeply unsettling. It upends the sense of identity the character once relied on, leaving them with more questions than answers. Once the trigger strikes, the psychological sequence begins. Shock is the first and most immediate reaction. In this state, the character is unable to fully process the truth unfolding before them. Their thoughts may become fragmented, their emotions overwhelmed by the abrupt shift in reality. Shock is necessary because it reflects the enormity of what has occurred. No one can instantly comprehend or accept that they are suddenly caught in the pull of destiny. This phase communicates to the audience that the moment is life-altering, not trivial. The character's stunned reaction allows viewers to feel the magnitude of the moment through them. Following shock comes denial. Denial serves as the character's attempt to preserve the stability of their previous worldview. They may reject the idea that they have special abilities, or they may refuse to believe a prophecy speaks of them. They might insist that a mentor is mistaken, or that the crisis they witnessed was a coincidence. This resistance is deeply human. It reveals that the character is not ready to abandon the identity they have known all their lives. Denial provides emotional texture by showing that destiny is not a gift handed to a willing recipient, but a burden that must be confronted. The tension created by this refusal adds dramatic depth to the narrative, emphasizing that transformation requires psychological struggle. Eventually, denial weakens under the weight of evidence. This leads to the next phase, recognition. Recognition is the moment when the character begins to acknowledge the truth, even if they are not ready to embrace it. They might replay the trigger event in their mind, analyze the implications, or reluctantly admit that too many signs point toward the same conclusion. Recognition is not acceptance. It is simply the acknowledgement that something significant has changed. In this phase, the character's internal conflict becomes more introspective. They may question who they are, what their life has meant until now, and why they were chosen. The narrative often uses this stage to deepen the emotional stakes, encouraging the audience to empathize with the character's struggle between the known past and the uncertain future. The final stage of the psychological sequence is acceptance. Acceptance does not always arrive peacefully. Sometimes it is reluctant, born from necessity rather than conviction. Other times it emerges as a decisive moment of empowerment. Regardless of its nature, acceptance marks the definitive shift in the protagonist's identity. In this moment, the character acknowledges the reality of their destiny and begins to internalize the responsibility that comes with it. The transformation may not be complete, and doubt may linger, but the protagonist has crossed a threshold. They can no longer return to the life they once lived, because the truth has become inseparable from who they are. The narrative power of this sequence lies in its universality. Every individual experiences moments in life when sudden revelations force them to reassess who they are and what they are capable of. Whether the revelation is positive or painful, the process of shock, denial, recognition, and acceptance is a profoundly human experience. When audiences watch the chosen one undergo this psychological journey, they connect with it on an emotional level. The trigger becomes a symbolic representation of the turning points in their own lives, moments when circumstances forced them to evolve. Another reason the trigger resonates so strongly is that it marks the boundary between the ordinary and the extraordinary. Before this moment, the protagonist navigated a familiar world governed by predictable rules. After the trigger, that world becomes expanded, complicated, and infused with possibilities they never previously imagined. This shift mirrors the way personal revelations can make reality feel different, even when nothing external appears to have changed. The character's internal world becomes the lens through which the audience experiences the story, and the trigger ensures that the lens has been permanently altered. The trigger also plays a crucial structural role. It serves as the narrative hinge, connecting the setup to the character's journey of transformation. Without it, the story would lack direction. With it, the story gains momentum. The trigger is the point where themes crystallize and where potential becomes inevitable. It ensures that the protagonist's journey is not passive, but propelled by a force that demands engagement, decision-making, and growth. As soon as the trigger occurs, the narrative clock begins to tick, driving the character toward the challenges that will test their courage and resolve. Finally, the trigger's dramatic impact is amplified by the emotional vulnerability it exposes. The chosen one, despite their destined role, is not immune to fear, doubt, or confusion. In fact, these emotions make their eventual transformation compelling. If they accepted their destiny without hesitation, the journey would lose much of its emotional weight. By showing the character's struggle in the aftermath of the trigger, the story validates their humanity. It demonstrates that heroism is not defined by the absence of fear, but by the willingness to move forward despite it. In this way, the trigger is the beating heart of the chosen one narrative. It is the spark that illuminates everything that follows, and the shockwave that reshapes the character's path. Once the trigger strikes, the story enters an entirely new phase, one in which destiny is no longer an abstract concept, but a living force with tangible consequences. The trigger transforms not only the character but the world they inhabit, and in doing so, invites the audience to witness the beginning of a journey that is as emotionally profound as it is narratively inevitable. Once the character moves through the psychological stages initiated by the triggering event, a deeper and more profound change begins to unfold. This transformation is not simply a reaction to external circumstances, it is an internal reconfiguration that reshapes how the character perceives themselves and their place in the world. The realization that they are the chosen one becomes more than a shocking truth or an unsettling revelation. It becomes the axis around which their identity slowly turns, guiding them into a new state of being that aligns with the destiny they once could not grasp. This shift marks the difference between a character who is acted upon by fate and a character who consciously steps into their purpose. The earlier stages of this transformation often feel turbulent and uneven. Acceptance itself may have arrived, but acceptance does not instantly grant confidence or clarity. Instead, the character must navigate a period of adjustment, during which their old habits, fears, and assumptions collide with the demands of their new role. This tension creates fertile ground for internal growth. It challenges the protagonist to interrogate their motivations, to evaluate what truly matters, and to redefine the limits they once believed were unbreakable. Although the realization has provided the spark, it is the transformation that begins to shape the character into someone capable of confronting the challenges ahead. Internal growth at this stage is subtle but persistent. The character's sense of self expands as they contemplate what it means to carry responsibility beyond their personal desires. The idea of destiny becomes intertwined with questions of morality, sacrifice, and purpose. They may feel the weight of expectations pressing down on them, yet this pressure acts not as a burden, but as a forging force. The character learns to identify what strengths lie dormant within them, and which weaknesses must be confronted rather than avoided. This process often requires quiet moments of introspection, where the protagonist reflects on their past and sees it through a new lens. Experiences that once seemed insignificant now feel like stepping stones that have been preparing them for this path all along. As the transformation progresses, the character begins to experience a deepening sense of responsibility. This responsibility is not imposed from outside, but emerges organically from their growing understanding of the stakes involved. The world they once experienced as a series of personal concerns now reveals itself as a vast, interconnected system shaped by forces much larger than themselves. Their actions, choices, and even their presence may now have consequences that echo far beyond their immediate environment. Recognizing this truth compels the character to adopt a new mindset. They no longer behave solely as an individual navigating life, but as a crucial component in a narrative that has implications for countless others. This evolving sense of responsibility also brings with it a shift in the character's emotional landscape. Fear may still linger, but it becomes accompanied by determination. Doubt may persist, but it is tempered by an emerging sense of duty. Even if the character did not initially seek out this role, they now recognize that the power or knowledge they possess cannot be ignored or squandered. The ordinary life they once led begins to feel distant, not because it was unimportant, but because it no longer aligns with who they are becoming. The character's worldview stretches to accommodate the magnitude of their purpose, and in doing so, they begin to embrace a form of maturity that transcends age or experience. Another key element of this shift is the character's developing relationship with their abilities or destiny-specific traits. Whether these abilities are magical, psychological, symbolic, or skill-based, the protagonist begins to test their limits. What once felt foreign or frightening now becomes an avenue for empowerment. But this empowerment is not without challenges. The character must learn discipline, control, and intentionality. Power without understanding is dangerous, and the Chosen One arc typically uses this phase to explore the tension between strength and restraint. The protagonist learns that true mastery involves not just wielding power, but knowing when not to wield it, recognizing the impact of every decision, and understanding the ethical weight behind their actions. Relationships also begin to transform during this phase. People who were once casual acquaintances may become allies or sources of guidance. Those who doubted the protagonist or overlooked them now see them in a new light, sometimes with awe, sometimes with fear. Bonds that were once uncomplicated grow more complex, as the character's new role forces them to reconsider priorities and commitments. These relational shifts reinforce the emotional stakes of the narrative. The protagonist is not transforming in isolation. Their actions influence and are influenced by others, creating a web of interdependent growth that shapes their trajectory. The burden of responsibility becomes not just a personal weight, but a communal reality, tying the character's choices to the well-being of the people around them. One of the most significant aspects of the transformation is the character's emerging determination to take action. Acceptance of destiny is meaningful only if it results in forward motion. This determination often reveals itself first in small decisions, choosing to train rather than hide, deciding to seek answers rather than remain ignorant, or stepping forward when others step back. These moments may seem understated, but they reflect the character's evolving mindset. Eventually, these small acts accumulate into a larger, decisive commitment. The protagonist reaches a point at which passive observation is no longer an option. They feel compelled to act, not because someone else told them to, but because they understand that inaction carries its own consequences. This determination marks the true beginning of the hero's journey. the character's internal transformation becomes externalized through their choices, actions, and readiness to face adversity. They begin to articulate their purpose, sometimes openly and sometimes simply through behavior. The narrative may place them in situations that test their resolve, forcing them to confront doubts or confront adversaries that reflect their inner struggles. Through these challenges, the character demonstrates resilience, adaptability, and a growing belief in their ability to shape outcomes. Even when they stumble, the willingness to continue moving forward becomes the defining feature of their identity. The transformation also establishes thematic coherence in the story. It aligns the protagonist's emotional journey with the larger narrative arc, ensuring that the character's development is not merely reactive, but purposeful. The shift from confusion to clarity, from fear to determination, and from passivity to action reflects the fundamental themes of empowerment, destiny, and identity. By grounding the character's transformation in emotional truth, the narrative ensures that subsequent challenges carry emotional weight. Every victory feels earned, and every setback feels meaningful because the audience has witnessed the psychological evolution that brought the character to this point. Moreover, this transformation lays foundational groundwork for the conflicts and revelations that will emerge later in the narrative. As the protagonist grows more comfortable with their role, the story expands to introduce greater stakes, deeper mysteries, and more formidable adversaries. The shift establishes the character as someone capable of engaging with these challenges, both mentally and emotionally. Without this phase, the protagonist would remain ill-equipped to endure what lies ahead. The transformation ensures that the character's growth is cumulative rather than spontaneous, building layer upon layer of emotional and moral resilience. What makes this phase particularly compelling is its sense of inevitability. Once the realization has taken root, and once the transformation begins, it becomes clear that the protagonist is progressing toward a destiny that feels both preordained and self-chosen. The paradox of the chosen one narrative is that destiny and agency coexist. The character may have been chosen, but they choose to embrace their path. This intersection of fate and autonomy adds depth to the transformation, underscoring the idea that identity is shaped not just by circumstance, but by choice. By the time this transformation reaches a stable point, the protagonist has become someone fundamentally different from the character we met at the beginning of the narrative. They are more aware, more responsible, and more resolute. Their understanding of themselves and the world has expanded, and they carry an inner strength that was previously dormant or unrecognized. This shift does not mark the end of their development, but the beginning of a larger, more complex journey. It provides the emotional and psychological foundation upon which the rest of the narrative will be built, ensuring that every subsequent challenge contributes to a continuing arc of growth. In this transformation, the character steps fully into the identity of the chosen one, not simply because they have been told they are destined for greatness, but because they have made the conscious decision to rise to the call. Their acceptance, responsibility, and determination solidify the story's momentum. With this shift complete, the stage is set for the conflicts, revelations, and triumphs that will define the remainder of their journey. As we reach the end of this exploration, the significance of the moment of realization becomes unmistakably clear. It stands as the emotional anchor point of every chosen one narrative, the instant in which the character's life splits between what once was and what must now be. This moment resonates so deeply because it reflects the universal experience of confronting truths that redefine who we are. It marks the moment when possibility becomes purpose, when confusion gives way to direction, and when identity shifts from something passively lived to something actively shaped. In stories built around destiny and transformation, few turning points carry more dramatic or psychological weight. The power of this moment lies not only in its narrative impact, but also in the symbolism it carries. It represents awakening, self-knowledge, and the acceptance of responsibility. It also offers a lens through which viewers can examine their own experiences of change, growth, and revelation. For audiences who appreciate the architecture of storytelling, this moment demonstrates how writers weave emotion and plot together to create meaning. For those who enjoy character-driven narratives, it reveals the precise point at which a protagonist steps into the arc that will define their journey. And for those fascinated by symbolism, it embodies themes of fate, identity, and transformation in their purest form. When we analyze the Chosen One story arc, it becomes evident that without this pivotal realization, the rest of the narrative would lose its structural and emotional grounding. Every triumph, every struggle, every sacrifice that follows gains its power from this foundational moment. It is the spark that ignites the hero's evolution and the promise that their path will lead to something greater than themselves. The moment of realization is what turns a character into a protagonist and a story into a legend. If you found this breakdown insightful, or if you enjoy diving deep into narrative progression, symbolism, and character development, make sure to support the channel. Please like and share the video to help it reach more viewers who appreciate this kind of storytelling analysis, and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss upcoming content.